hear the entire show and many others, visit www.PureMomentum.net.
Executive Order 11002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. Again, this is massive data collection. This is going into NSA. This is all part of the surveillance structure that we now see coming in on us in ways in which are unfathomable with the technologies of nanotechnology, etc. Then we look at Executive Order 11003, which allows the government to take over airports and aircraft, including commercial aircraft. Executive Order 11004 allows the Housing and Finance Authority to relocate communities, build new housing with public funds, designate areas to be abandoned, and establish new locations for populations. Now, this is what we're seeing happening in the United States now, and it has been ongoing for a very, very long time. An excellent YouTube to watch what was happening during the time of the Great Depression and before, and now is in a YouTube entitled Torn from the Land. Torn from the Land. I would highly recommend watching that YouTube. There's also Executive Order 11051, and that specifies the responsibility of the Office of Emergency Planning and gives authorization to put all executive orders into effect in times of increased international tensions and economic or financial crisis. So in other words, as our de facto and rogue military operations continues to increase international tensions abroad, the executive orders here at home can continue to harness all of us to a point where, as Ireland is now coming out, they're actually starting to dispense national ID cards. Cuba's been doing this for a long time, and other countries as well, where you literally cannot travel to another town without having identification and making prior travel plans in order to get permission to go to another town. This is, again, all part of the isolation that is being created now to keep us isolated on many, many levels, not only from travel, but also isolation that is considered and called white torture. And this is not an ethnic white torture per se. It means severe isolation. And Ron, I'd really like you to address that because white torture is horrific.
White torture, you can internet search white torture. It's what's done to news reporters in Muslim countries. And so it's done now with the NSA mind control weaponry. I'm a civil engineer and a scientist, and I'm a member of AE911truth.org. So it's done to the 911 Truth movement people because they don't want the truth of what really went on out there. And it's also done to whistleblowers, but we have the Whistleblower Protection Act of 1997.
Now, you're talking about white torture and how this is done to people that are involved with certain aspects of wanting to inform the population. So could you explain what white torture is?
White torture is where your phone is rerouted, your email is rerouted, you don't get calls from your friends or family because they're harassed either verbally or they're using directed energy weaponry on them or mind control weaponry on them.
So they can use synthetic telepathy and literally cause people that would normally stay in touch with you, they could then become absent from your life, which is what we're hearing now by thousands of people in the United States.
The NSA is behind this, and the CIA. And they have been using this on Americans. They can blacklist you from employment. And that's what they're doing to me. Because I came across...
And they're doing this, Ron, to hundreds of thousands of other people. So your story is a personal story of what you have experienced being blacklisted in trying to get information out. And that's what this listening audience needs to understand. We have been in an illusion of what structure has been in place, and it is not. And they've needed to keep this illusion going to end up to the point of this conversation right now, because the ultimate goal has been to control all energy on the face of the planet, all energy, including us, our brains, all frequencies, all matter. And Ron, you can discuss that a little more fully at this moment, because that is the goal, and this is where we are now in the reality of the technology.
Yeah, I mean, they don't want alternative energies out there, zero-point energy systems. I mean, they have so many beautiful free energy systems. See, the weather weaponry that has been exposed by Jesse Ventura, they're using weaponized weather warfare for quite some time. Bernard Eastland, if you Google Bernard Eastland, weather modification patent, he wrote this concept in the 80s in Texas. They're using these weather weapons to attack places like Joplin, Missouri with tornadoes, those poor children in Oklahoma that were killed in the schools. They're using these weather weapons, and they're directed energy weapons, because these systems are called over-the-horizon radar systems. There's a send station and receive station on Vieques, Puerto Rico, which is a U.S. military base, and then there's one in Tibet, China. It's the same thing as the Gacona, Alaska HARP, and there's also one off of Portugal. There's 52.
Now let me stop you right now, because we're hearing, of course, the one in Alaska has now been decommissioned, and we're understanding that is because now the joint efforts between the United States and Russia with that technology that they were gaining in Alaska is now no longer necessary, according to Loren Murray, and they have other forms of weapons. What do you know about that?
There's over 52 over-the-horizon radar systems, and I have a map with about 12 or 14 of them, and also, showing them where they are on Earth. Okay, but they're all over the place. Even the high-power, high-voltage transmission towers, those huge metal transmission antenna, they actually go hundreds of feet into the Earth with grounding wires, and that's part of a HARP array as well. HARP is all over the USA and the world. It's just
so literally we're being based with frequencies in the ground, in the air, as a result of all of our wireless communication devices. The Star Wars, we're being based completely, as Barry Trower so well stated in the YouTube, the cooking of humanity.
That's correct. And we have to understand that this technology was known by Nikola Tesla and George H. Scherf. Also, George H. Scherf is George Herbert Walker Bush. They're one and the same person. Scherf was the accountant of Nikola Tesla, and George H. Bush was the son of the accountant of Nikola Tesla. They gained access to these technologies, and there's no coincidence that we had a President Reagan and Vice President Bush develop Star Wars, because that was just an extension of Nikola Tesla's death ray. And the Russians have the death ray, and the Chinese have the death ray, and the North Koreans have one. Everybody is using this technology. It's out of the box, but it can also be reined in with just a simple
Well, I
salt.
wanted to tell you though, when I interviewed Barry Trower, he said that there's not 1 square inch of the globe that isn't being bathed in frequencies at this point.
Correct.
And I spoke with him just a few days ago, actually, and he has just returned back to the UK where he lives from Germany. And he has, of course, experienced and knows that many of the targeted individuals are now experiencing greater levels of targeting. And we're talking about the Tesla technology and how now this has been used, this technology has been confiscated by those with the methodology, the power, the wealth.
To hear the entire show and many others, visit www.PureMomentum.net.